connecting with our current affairs team at Mount Hampden, where this extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state afternoon session will be taking place. I will also be joined in our Pocket Hill studios by various guests as we get to unpack this very situation which is happening in Congo. As you well know, Zimbabwe is the chairperson led by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. Emmerson Mnangagwa, who is the chairperson of SADC. And last year in November, we did see a call for an extraordinary summit to assess the situation, the peace and security situation in DRC, where in November 17 to be exact, where it started, there were about 6.5 million displaced, internally displaced Congolese people. And right now we did receive reports, the United Nations report, which is speaking of about 500,000 Congolese people have so far been displaced. Let me just welcome our guests who will be helping us understand what is actually happening right now. Political analyst Dr. Abigail Mpambi, welcome. And we are looking at the SADC Extraordinary Summit of SADC Heads of State and Government. The situation seems to be very dire in eastern parts of DRC. But let's get to understand, give us context of this situation. What is happening? What brought about this extraordinary summit that we are going to be seeing today?
Well, thank you so very much for having me. And of course, it is important, like you have highlighted, to bring to context the long and I would say outstanding conflict in DRC. You would appreciate that just about by November, I'm sure we're here, when recommendations were coming in and we saw an extraordinary summit as a response from, of course, the chairperson of SADC to the situation in DRC. This is just barely maybe 2 months. We are here again. The situation is, of course, worsening. And the background context is quite an issue of a conflict. This, of course, has got its roots rooted even in the colonial legacy. The then former president and late Mobutu legacy, the issues of the resource case in the eastern parts of the DRC. It is also important to understand that we have ethnic issues there that are also at play. And we have got the question that is coming in of weak, of course, a disrupted governance system of the DRC. And because of the, let's talk of the M23 rebels within the DRC that are, of course, disturbing the natural order of business and, of course, hijacking certain systems to an extent that we are talking about displacement of millions and, of course, the children, women, and so forth. The DRC, as the member of SADC, of course, has the responsibility to call for the action of SADC. It is the responsibility of the DRC to call. So because of such a call, from time to time, we have seen SADC responding from 1998, 2012, and recently, and here we are again. We are seeing a response from the SADC chair to say we need probably to fasten the belts and do it better this time around, because surely SADC cannot fold their hands. It is time now. We are all in high anticipation to see that the mission has been there, the extension has been there, but basically I feel that probably the terms of reference must be revised. Maybe they were there probably for peacekeeping, which is okay, but probably there has to be an enforcement to, of course, make sure that we have some footprints of some progress in that region, because what is happening is considered an invasion that we are seeing in the DRC. So much as we may be talking of enforcement and peacekeeping, but I think also that we now need to appreciate the multifaceted scenario of this conflict.
Because obviously
Yeah.
it is very complex. You did mention the issue of the political situation, but then there is also the matter around the resources. It is believed that the situation in eastern parts of DRC has to also do with the resource matter in that area. Obviously, they are in abundance resources like your cobalt, your tin, just to mention a few. And DRC, if we are not mistaken, actually has almost the world's almost 70% of the world's cobalt, which makes it a very critical part of the situation when we're looking to resources and to the agenda when it comes to development. But Abigail, we know that Zimbabwean troops were sent in. That was about in the 90s, 1998 to about 2002. And relatively, we did see peace prevailing in the Congo and looking at Goma itself. But we then saw later on there was a crisis of sorts, and we started seeing even the M23 rebels moving in and causing a lot of havoc. Let's speak to the political situation this. Let's speak to the security situation, how this then impacts even the economic bloc itself, SADC.
Well, you would appreciate that, of course, we had an effective mission that managed to bring us results as SADC, but you must appreciate that we have got an external hand that is in the resource scarce question of the DRC, and also maybe even to talk of Africa. When we are set against each other and we are probably busy fighting among and between each other, the third hand will be, of course, focusing on resources. And this is what we are seeing. With the vast resources in DRC, they should be benefiting the economy of SADC. And of course, we see a disruption of trade even in the Great Lakes region, in a part of that part of Africa. And
but Dr. Mpambi, I will have to interject there because we now want to cross over to Mount Hampden, where we have Justin Matlatla on standby as they also take us through what is happening right now as we get to understand there are some of the heads of state of the SADC region who have arrived, and of course this will be for the SADC Extraordinary Summit of SADC Heads of State. Justin, you can take us through what is happening.
Thank you so much, Monica. Yes, as the situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo deteriorates, regional leaders in the SADC bloc are convening here at the new parliament building in Harare this afternoon to discuss the situation and perhaps discuss and map a way forward and bring lasting solutions to the conflict and the crisis that has rocked the eastern parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo, in particular the northern Kivu as well as the Goma regions, where M23 rebels have reportedly taken control. So this afternoon, President Emmerson Mnangagwa will preside over this extraordinary summit that has been convened specifically to tackle the worsening political crisis and security situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We know that other SADC regional leaders will be arriving in Harare, and some have since arrived. We have already seen the arrival of Madagascar President, that's President Andry Rajoelina. He's already in Harare for this summit together with newly installed Mozambican President Daniel Chapo. Also, Ghana President is also here, that's Duma Boko, and the chairperson of the SADC organ on politics, defense and security, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania. So the African Development Community Mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the SAMI DRC, was deployed on the 15th of December 2023 to support the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo to restore peace and security in the eastern parts of that country. And this has witnessed an increase in conflicts and instability caused by the resurgence of armed groups. The deployment of the SAMI DRC was approved by the Extraordinary SADC Summit of of heads of state and government held in Windhoek, the Republic of Namibia, on 8 May 2023 as a regional response to address the unstable and deteriorating security situation prevailing in the Eastern DRC. And we also know that today's extraordinary summit follows the outcome of the extraordinary summit of the SADC organ Troika, plus the DRC and troop contributing countries known as the TCCs to the SADC mission in the DRC, which was held on the 28th of January 2025. That's this Tuesday. And it was chaired by Her Excellency President Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania in her capacity as chairperson of the SADC organ on politics, defense and security cooperation. So the regional bloc is here today to make a statement and also to prove their commitment to ensuring the prevalence of peace and stability on the region. This is why they convene such extraordinary meetings and summits to tackle growing or situations that need the urgency and the attention of the regional bloc. So President Emerson Mnangagwa, as chairperson, will be leading proceedings and deliberations here this afternoon to ensure that peace is restored in the Eastern DRC. As I said earlier, leaders started arriving in the country for this summit. Others are also arriving as we speak. Some, of course, will be sending in their representatives, but it's a critical question there in the Eastern DRC, with over 400,000 people reportedly displaced due to the tensions and the conflict that is there in the Eastern DRC, a humanitarian crisis that also needs the attention of the SADC regional bloc. I'm getting back to you now, Monica, for more details. We'll continue to give you updates from the Mount Hamden New Parliament building here in Harare this afternoon.
Thank you, Justin. And he will be on the ground at Mount Hamden, where the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government will be taking place. That critical afternoon session where His Excellency the President will be presiding. He is also the SADC chairperson, His Excellency President Emmerson Mnangagwa. But our guest, Dr. Abigail Mpambi, we're looking at this critical situation, the disturbances in eastern parts of DRC. Obviously, it does threaten the issue of the region itself. When we're talking regional integration, we're talking economic integration, among many critical issues.
Indeed, I was actually mentioning the issue of the DRC rich resources, which are not only for DRC, but of course for Africa and of course for SADC. But when we see such a scenario, a conflict escalating, it means that everything, of course, goes on standstill. And beyond that, I was still explaining that the third force, the third hand, whilst we are actually thrown into turmoil, they are focusing on looting the resources. So this is what actually triggers the interest more of SADC, considering that we have got a responsibility to, of course, protect in terms of the sovereign, not only of the member states, but the sovereign of the bloc itself as a SADC. We have got a serious shared history, cultural, and of course shared infrastructure, people to people. Now we are having serious divisions among and between the people of Africa because of such, of course, a turmoil. I was talking of even the tension, if not probably managed. We are beginning to see this, of course, having some spillovers even beyond SADC. We are seeing interest within the EAC. We are seeing interest around the African Union. By the way, beyond SADC, we are also equally members of the African Union. So our interest as Africa, of course, is already tempered with because of the situation in the DRC at the moment.
Okay, we will just advise our viewers at home. We are advise that we do have 4 heads of state and government who are already in the country to attend the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government. Let me just run through the heads of state who are attending at this point in time. Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the Republic of Tanzania. She is also the chairperson of the SADC organ on politics, defense and security. And we also have the President of Madagascar, His Excellency Andre Rajoelina, who also is in attendance for that extraordinary SADC summit of heads of state and government. To mention, we also have the President of Mozambique, His Excellency Daniel Chapo, as well as the President of Botswana, His Excellency Duma Boko, who are attending this SADC extraordinary summit of heads of state and government. And the critical issue, the key issue on the agenda is the security, the peace situation in eastern parts of DRC. Goma. It has, of course, been a very, very critical, a key area when we're looking at the Congolese people, the issue of resources. And what I also picked up from your analysis is that there is some sort of resource curse of sorts, which then continues to affect DRC because it becomes an interest, it becomes an interested party when we're looking to the resources. Let's speak to how the region itself, the critical role that SADC should be playing. I know, obviously, like I did mention, that we do have Tanzania, who are currently the chairperson of that organ on politics, defense and security. What role should SADC be playing right now in terms of ensuring that peace and security come to the people of eastern parts of DRC?
Well, thank you so very much. And I think the issue of revisiting the question of the infrastructure on peace, that of course not only limited to what SADC can have done before. I am looking forward to say we once had a lot of these settlements. Talk of the Lusaka ceasefire of 1999, talk of the AU, they've been on the ground, the EAC, we have the Luanda process, all these processes taking place. So the multifaceted approach that has been used gave us a very rich peace infrastructure, which I think that going forward, probably it's a high time we consolidate such efforts and say who could be missing in the matrix, what could be lacking, even before we craft a new instrument. So for me, I think we can consolidate so that I can look deeper on that end and of course leverage on some higher level kind of diplomacy, which should of course include all these players, even the EAC. I think diplomatically they must rise to that level and also talk about the continental board itself. The UN has been on the ground for 25 years. Only last year, recently, that's when they pulled out. What could be that which we can pick from the institutional memory of the UN on their stay for 25 years on the ground? We visited at one point and we came out. And let's look at the Luanda process. We have seen some will in terms of coming together at one point, signing, but the implementation has been failing. What could be hindering that? So I think we may need to escalate the levels in terms of diplomatic engagement and our peace infrastructure. And of course, going forward, we have got the SADC mission that is already there on ground. Probably, I have a feeling that there may be need to, of course, revisit the terms of guiding them going forward. Probably there has to be an issue of enforcing going forward.
But this enforcement, this enforcement, Dr. Mpambi, in as much as we have been seeing various engagements and in a situation such as this, there's always a call for some sort of diplomatic solution to a crisis, whether we're talking about the regional bloc itself in SADC or whether we're talking on a continental basis. But you also brought in a very interesting aspect in terms of the East African community. Obviously, looking at SADC itself, if we are to look at the agenda itself, and you did speak about escalating the conversation, escalating the talks, should we be seeing SADC engaging EAC in terms of dealing with the situation with the eastern parts of DRC?
I want to believe that diplomatically it is possible. At one point you would appreciate that the EAC was on the same ground, and besides, the warring parties are at one point all members of EAC, and of course we have an interest to protect our own member, but that will not stop us to appreciate the context from other regional bodies who have got an interest in the very same place. And when we look at ourselves, at one point we find ourselves as equal members at the African Union. So for me, this spillover is automatic, that it should empower SADC, of course, to escalate, like I say, diplomatic engagements to a level of appreciating all players and the infrastructure they set before, the limitations, so that we can probably come up with even a more sound, a more effective strategy going forward.
All right. So we do have Angolan troops, we have Tanzanian troops, we have South African troops, we have Malawian troops who were on a peacekeeping mission in Goma and other parts. And then we are looking at the diplomatic spat that recently happened between South Africa and Rwanda. And mind you, like you said, they need to have diplomatic talks. But given the situation, the dire situation that we're seeing in DRC, eastern parts of DRC right now, where we're looking, this year alone, the UN reported about 500,000 have been displaced. This calls for a humanitarian crisis.
Indeed.
Escalating the situation, how does UN then come in this situation?
Well, I want to believe that the UN, of course, through the UN Security Council, they have a supreme jurisdiction to fly in. And of course, like you are mentioning the South Africa, that's becoming, of course, individualistic. Those are just a spillover, a prolonged conflict in the DRC. Now we see some spillovers where we see, of course, the coming in of South Africa, probably with the Rwanda, and they're pointing at each other. But I think South Africa also on a mission, a regional mission. So, like I said, if a conflict is prolonged, eventually, naturally, we find some spillovers, and this must be contained before it, of course, escalates into an African problem or an African conflict, because we know that member states, they've got, of course, their bilateral relations across the board. So the mission within SADC must be, of course, contained. And of course, even as Zimbabwe, I'll give you quickly, at one point, we suffered the spillovers after we assisted DRC. It is part of why we have got the US sanctions. It's because of such issues around the foreign policies of the US, foreign policies of different countries. So such is international relations, such is international politics, and we have to maneuver such through diplomatic means.
Okay, so we are also seeing various delegates who are arriving at Mount Hampton for the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government. And we also just saw in the picture earlier there, the SADC, we did see His Excellency Elias Mahosi just speaking to some of the delegates there. But it seems this situation, if we are saying in less than 2 months having another extraordinary SADC summit, it means this is of critical importance to the region itself in terms of stability issues. We know that as a regional bloc, their mandate, some of the objectives of the region itself are to ensure that there is that economic integration, there is that regional integration, regional cooperation, there is the issues of peace and security being very key, the issues of migration also come into play. How would this situation then hamper the progress that SADC has made in terms of those issues?
Well, for me, the immediate and just-on-time response must actually be commended. And of course, we are moving on a theme that talks about innovation and the industrialization of SADC. Indeed, when we have such a disturbance, it means that the flow of trade, the flow of the natural, usual business and is disturbed. But for responding swiftly and immediately, I think we should commend the leadership of SADC, of course, under the able leadership of His Excellency. Indeed, this is what is expected of. We can't project when will we have probably a problem of that sort. But what is important, what we can predict, is the response time. It is exactly what is happening right now.
And in most cases, when we have a situation or a conflict situation, they normally call for warring parties to come to the table. Is this alone going to solve the situation in DRC is also one of the big questions that is being raised. Is talking or coming to the table to talk going to be enough for dealing with the situation in eastern parts of DRC?
I don't think it will be enough. This is why I've been showing you, I've been mentioning a lot of documents that have been signed, and we failed to go for action. And it could only make sense if only this was an internal African issue. But at a time you think that you have got warring parties, someone is missing, others may be proxies. So it is very, very difficult. So until we managed to identify the visible characters and the invisible characters in this conflict, we may not be able to resolve it, because we have, of course, the front runners and, of course, the invisible characters. We must be able to, of course, dissect. We must be able to identify, so that we are able to, of course, attend to the question of bringing all the players on board. But some of them is difficult, because they'll be knowing what they are doing is illegal, is against international law. So they may not come up in the open, but we must be able to, of course, identify them, so that we pay attention to every facet of this conflict.
And we were just taking a look at some of the pictures that were appearing on our screen, Dr. Mopambi, and of course, I think if we are correct us, maybe they'll correct us if we're wrong. I think we probably saw Her Excellency Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah, of course, the President of Namibia, and we are seeing the heads of state and government coming to this extraordinary summit, because with the region being affected by one of the member states' peace and security situation, it becomes a cause for concern for the other member states themselves. But I also want us to understand, especially in terms of the rebel movement, the M23. Help us understand this M23, why it has had the impact that it has had in eastern parts of DRC. Where are they drawing their power from? This is something that we probably also need to understand in order for us to move forward, even with other conversations.
Well,
who is probably funding these M23?
Well, it has remained the allegations, and of course they stand to say it's not it, but the power may prove otherwise. There is a serious bad blood, publicly so, between Rwanda and the DRC.
But
yes.
Dr. Mpambi,
Yeah.
I think we will just take a short break as we also get to get more communication in terms of the heads of state and government, the SADC heads of state and government who are arriving at this point in time. We will continue to keep you abreast of the situation on the ground, as well as connecting with our current affairs team at Mount Hampden, Justin on the ground, who will also be giving us communication in terms of what is happening. It is, of course, the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government happening in Harare, Zimbabwe, where the situation in eastern parts of DRC is of utmost importance and on the agenda. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We welcome you once again to this live broadcast where we will be taking you through proceedings of what is taking place today. We will be having that crucial afternoon session where the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government and the situation in eastern parts of DRC is on the agenda, where we also saw reports from the United Nations over 500,000 people displaced in eastern parts of DRC. But we have in Mount Hampden, where this critical extraordinary summit will be taking place, Justin Matlatla, giving us a sense of what is happening. Justin, it's over to you. Take us through what is currently underway and take us through the heads of state and government who've since arrived.
Nyasha don't rovesa nevanhu. Thank you once again. We are coming to you live from Parliament Building, the new Parliament Building in Mount Hampden, where today heads of state and government from the SADC regional bloc are convening to discuss the escalating situation, the security situation in the eastern parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo. As we speak, President Emerson Mnangagwa has arrived here at the new Parliament Building. Also, we saw the arrival of our newly installed Mozambican President Daniel Chapo, together with the new president in Botswana, Duma Boko, is also here. We've also seen the arrival of the leader of the Kingdom of Lesotho is also here, and the chairperson of the SADC organ Troika, that's President Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania. She's also here, together with other leaders, and some of the regional leaders have sent in representatives in the form of their ministers of foreign affairs as well as others. So these are the expectations of what we are looking forward to this afternoon as the summit gets underway. Shortly, of course, as we continue to witness the arrival of heads of state and government, we'll be having a family photo of the SADC heads of state and government that will be taken right here at the new Parliament Building at the entrance. And of course, afterwards, the heads of state and government will then proceed to enter the hall in a procession and take their positions. There will be the singing of the national anthems, starting with the anthem of the Republic of Zimbabwe as the host and chairperson of the extraordinary summit, followed by the SADC and AU anthems. Of interest, of course, to note is that the SADC the SADC anthem rather is one that promotes a regional collaboration, regional integration, regional economic and socio-political development, one that continuously reminds the people of the region to come together, to hold hands, to hold each other, and to echo the sentiments and the founding values of the fathers of the Southern African Development Community, then the development community that was actually Of course, we continue to see the arrival of other heads of state and government here at the new parliament building, who are coming in for this extraordinary summit that has been convened to deliberate the escalating tensions and conflict that in the eastern parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo. We understand from recent reports that about 400,000 people have been displaced rather, due to the conflict in the Kivu, the north and southern parts of the Kivu region, that's in the eastern DRC, together with about the death of close to 20 people in the conflict that took place recently between the M23 fighters and the Democratic Republic of Congo army, together with others, even including peacekeepers from the Republic of South Africa, Angola, and others who are involved in peacekeeping missions in that part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So as we continue maybe with a look at what will be we will be expecting this afternoon here at the new parliament building. The heads of state and government are arriving. We are also going to see the introduction of the heads of state and government by the director of ceremonies, followed by the introductory remarks from His Excellency Mr. Elias Mpedi Mahosi, who is the executive secretary of SADC, and then that will be followed by a welcome statement from President Dr. Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, who is the president of the Republic of Zimbabwe, as well as the chairperson of SADC, getting into August of 2025. There will be then the extraordinary summit. The deliberations, discussions will take place in a closed door session. We are going to get the outcomes later on, as the executive secretary is going to read the summit communique after the closed door ceremony, and then later that will also be followed by a closing statement by President Emerson Mnangagwa as chairperson of the SADC regional bloc. So that's basically what will be taking place today. It's a one-day event, but very critical in terms of coming up with a lasting solution to the tension that has affected thousands of lives and seen others die and perish, the destruction of infrastructure, livelihoods in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Also considering that this is a decades-long tension that has been in existence for years and years, but with riding on the principle of injure one, injure all, and injury to one is an injury to all, the SADC regional bloc has found ways to ensure that they come together through this extraordinary summit to map the way forward and perhaps bring in a lasting solution to the crisis that is there in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So we are also expecting even the arrival of the DRC President Felix Tshisekedi, who should be here as well to join other regional leaders in these deliberations, very critical deliberations today. So we also understand that the deployment of the SAMI DRC force was approved by the extraordinary SADC summit of heads of state and government that was held in Windhoek, the Republic of Namibia. That was on 8 May 2023 as a regional response to address the unstable and deteriorating security situation in the DRC. And as part of the SAMI DRC SADC regional force from the republics of Malawi, South Africa, and the United Republic of Tanzania, and elements of the DRC armed forces are working with the Congolese army, the forces armies de la République Démocratique du Congo, in fighting armed groups operating in the eastern DRC. And the presence of the SAMI DRC there demonstrates the commitment of SADC member states to supporting the DRC in its efforts to achieve lasting peace and stability, and ultimately create an enabling environment for sustainable development and prosperity. This is also very critical when we consider and look at the founding values of the SADC regional bloc, which are, besides solving political issues, creating environments that will enable socio-economic development. It's time for us to get back to our Pockets Hill studios, where we have Monica Chanda, of course, and Ketli Gwindi giving us also updates from there and discussions as this program progresses. Back to you guys.
Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Zambia, Madagascar. Botswana, Lesotho, Mauritius, Eswatini.
We've got Zimbabwe, South Africa, Angola, Zambia. Those are the ones that I'm aware of.
Zimbabwe, Botswana, South Africa, Tanzania. Mozambique, Malawi, Botswana. I think those are here. Zimbabwe, South Africa, Tanzania, Mozambique, and Zambia.
There is Zimbabwe, South Africa, Malawi, Angola, Tanzania.
Yeah, I've got Zimbabwe, Zambia, Angola, Seychelles, Madagascar, Lesotho, Swaziland, South Africa. We've got Namibia, Mozambique, Malawi, Eswatini, Angola. Yeah, I think that's the few that I know.
Mozambique. I forget.
Zimbabwe, South Africa, Lesotho, Swaziland, Mozambique, Zambia, Angola, Namibia, and South Botswana and Italy. I think this was the remote.
Ndoziva Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, South Africa.
Ndoziva Zambia, ndoziva South Africa, ndoziva Botswana, and this.
And that's like Zimbabwe, Tanga, is Zimbabwe. Tini Angola, Tini Malawi, Botswana, Namibia, South Africa. I've heard 14, 15, but Mangwachana Buddha. Yeah, Mangwachana Buddha.
Zimbabwe, South Africa, Zambia, Swaziland, Botswana.
Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Botswana, Mozambique.
There's South Africa, there's Zimbabwe, there's Eswatini. That's three.
Zimbabwe, Zambia, South Africa, Botswana, Madagascar, DRC.
Imagine a region where innovation knows no bounds, where growth and development are limitless, and where opportunities are seized with passion and purpose. Welcome to SADC, where the spirit of innovation resides, unlocking a brighter future for all. From cutting-edge technology to sustainable solutions, the SADC region is buzzing with creativity and progress. We are driving economic growth, creating jobs, and building a better life for our people. Together towards a future that is industrialized, sustainable, and full of opportunities. SADC, unlocking opportunities for sustainable economic growth and development. Join the innovation journey.
Zimbabwe is not just a country, not just a place. It's much, much more than that. It's the sound of the birds early in the morning as the sun rises. Zimbabwe is a feeling. Zimbabwe is a world of wonders.
We welcome you once again. This is a live broadcast as we take you through today's very crucial meeting, which is, of course, the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government, where we continue to see the various heads of state from the regional bloc arriving earlier on. For those who were joining us throughout the conversations we were having, we did see the arrival of the president of Botswana, His Excellency Duma Boko. He has arrived in the country. He is attending. We also have in attendance the President of Mozambique, His Excellency Daniel Chapo. We also have President of Madagascar, His Excellency Andre Rajoelina, as well as we also saw Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the Republic of Tanzania. And she is also a very important part of the agenda today because she is the chairperson of the SADC organ on politics, defense and security, which is why the heads of state of the SADC region are also meeting here, because it is the disturbances that are happening in eastern parts of DRC, which is why we will also be taking you through. But as you get to see the picture on your screen, we have the President of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa. He is also being led there by our own Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. He is also the chairperson of the Council of Ministers for SADC, that is Professor Amon Murwira. And as we also spoke earlier with our guest, Dr. Abigail Pambi, we also brought into context the issue around South Africa and Rwanda, some sort of diplomatic spat of sorts. But how does this then affect the situation on the ground? How does this affect the efforts that are being made by SADC in terms of peacekeeping? But otherwise, we do have another guest who will also help us understand what is happening in the eastern parts of DRC. What brought about this second extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state? As of course, international law expert Dr. Leopold Chakanyuka, thank you for joining us. We are here once again trying to understand why are we seeing the escalation, the disturbances in eastern parts of DRC. And mind you, if we are to go back in history to April 20 movement, take us through this history. Take us through the situation, why we continue to see these rebels pushing in the northern and southern parts of Kivu and bring about these disturbances, which then affect the economic development, or should we say the regional mandate of regional integration, of regional cooperation, of economic development, among many other issues.
Thank you very much for having me here. And, the conflict in DRC has to be understood, I think, from three dimensions. The first one is I would say, historical as well as ethnical dimension, where you are looking at in terms of the history, how, the Berlin Conference divided Africa, where you ended up having people who share the same tribe or ethnicity being divided between one or more countries. So that is what part of the situation also in the eastern part of DRC, because it does have people who speak Kinyarwanda, or who are, part and parcel of the Tutsi people from Rwanda. And you also get to see the ethnicity, because there have been also concerns, especially that have been raised by those who are fighting in terms of the ethnical fights that have been happening in that area. Yesterday, I was listening to a speech that was given, some years ago by the former president of South Africa, when he was trying to, Thabo Mbeki, when he was putting that historical and ethnical aspect into context. How, the Tutsi people who are resident in DRC have been complaining about what they have been terming as sidelining, or not being included in terms of the national politics of the country. That's the first dimension. The second dimension is the resource aspect of it. We are looking at the eastern part of DRC and the resources that that region does have, and how many individuals or countries have had interest in the resources that are found in that area. And to an extent, certain individuals have been promoting instability in that part as a result, in order to create chaos so that they can actually get in and loot or get resources or access to resources in that particular region. And also the issue of allocation of resources itself has been one of the major issue. The third aspect, which I think is very critical, it's the international dimension, where we are looking at how the conflict has been internationalized. Because when you look at it, it looks like it's an internal, disturbance. It's an internal war. But in actual fact, the war in Congo is actually an international war in terms of practice and how many countries have been involved in the disturbances that have been happening in Congo. I will take you a little bit back into the 1990s when this issue actually started in 1996. How that came about with the people after in the aftermath of the genocide in Rwanda. You had people who ran away from the genocide, who went into DRC at that particular time. And when they settled in DRC, when the Tutsi-led government took power, there were also people of Hutus who came to DRC. And part of those people also formed a rebel group, or I would say a military group. And at that particular time, you had Rwanda, Uganda, then supporting Kabila to overthrow the Mobutu-led government. They succeeded, and then they started having challenges, internal challenges, with those people who had helped Kabila to win the war, and Kabila's administration. Again, conflicts at that particular time started. We went there as part of SADC. That was Zimbabwe, Namibia, and Angola. We went there, we fought, and we succeeded. And later on, the country was not really stable. Of course, there was quite a number of measures that have been taken. You would talk about the Lusaka Agreement and so forth, which brought relatively peace in that region. But then came 2012, when the establishment of the M23 again. You saw there's been so much accusations, and we have to talk about this because this has been happening and people have been talking about of how now, when the M23 came about, the support which they have been receiving from Rwanda. There's been claims. So in 2012, I would remember that SADC met in Addis Ababa, in Tanzania, actually Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, where they authorized the forces intervention in Peru, which operated, of course, under the United Nations. We had 3 countries at that particular time: South Africa, Malawi, and Tanzania, that went and defeated the M23. And on that, the background to that story was there were also accusations of how Rwanda had been playing a part in terms of sponsoring and supporting the M23 rebel. And at that particular time, of course, they were able to defeat the M23. But of course, the dear Congolese government has been again having now challenges. See, from 2012, you then saw the emergence of the Mai Mai group. So the Mai Mai group became more of a militia group, where the government called upon the people, the young people, to join the military and defend their own country. As these people were invited to come, they formed a group, the Mai Mai, to defend their motherland against what they termed as foreign invasion. And when they were talking about foreign invasion, they were referring to the M23, labeling it as a force that is being funded by Rwanda. So to them, it was Rwanda now that was encroaching into their country using the M23, and they had to defeat the M23.
So we're saying different rivalries emanating from this, but obviously we do know that the M23 took up their name. It is believed they took up their name. It is also believed by some analysts who believe this war, this situation in DRC, the disturbances that we're seeing, especially in the eastern parts of DRC, are grounded on ethnic, or should we say geo-ethnic rivalries. So this is like an ethnic war at play, and hence, as long as this is not dealt with also, it will continue to compound the situation. Let's have your take with that.
You know what, if we put it primarily as an ethnic-based war, we might actually miss the bigger picture or the real issue. Of course, ethnicity is one of the factors that has promoted the, necessitated the continuation of the conflict. It's like, there are other parts, or other factors that probably are taking advantage of the ethnical dimension of the war to promote. The fact that, that's why I'm saying, when you listen, recently, especially the statements that have been made by the leaders, will give you the international dimension, which I was actually about to talk about. You saw when the Security Council, United Nations Security Council met, there were statements that were made by the South African officials, statements that were made by the Congolese officials, and also the DRC official. You had statements again that were made by the DRC president, statements that were made by the Rwandese president, and again also South African president. I'm saying when you put all these into analysis, it gives you another dimension that is way beyond ethnicity. Of course, the groups that are fighting might belong to a particular, ethnic group, and they might raise issues that are more to do with ethnicity to cover other factors that could be promoting, or necessitating the continuation of the conflict that has to be dealt with. Because when you look at DRC itself, and it's not the only country in Africa that has multiple ethnic groups in it. Why is it that it is the only country that is experiencing this current situation? We
will maybe ask you to hold that thought, your train of thoughts, as we take another short break. And we are taking you through the proceedings of the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government. And it is happening today with that afternoon session, with the main agenda of the extraordinary SADC summit being on the situation, the disturbances in eastern parts of DRC. Don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages.
A SADC that is food secure. Investment in agriculture should be a primary objective of every SADC country. Mechanization of agriculture, smart agriculture. A SADC that promotes infrastructural development and connectivity that allows people-to-people contact. A SADC that allows industrialization and trade among our people. A SADC that extracts its vast mineral resources to benefit its people through beneficiation. A SADC that embraces its diversity and shared beauty in nature, music, and art. A SADC that invests in its young people. After all, the future is in their hands. A SADC that innovates and conquers technology. A SADC inovakwa nebene bayo. SADC yakiwa nabanikazi bayo. SADC is built by none but ourselves. Let's build the SADC we want. You, me, all of us. SADC united and stronger together. I am ED, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe.
Welcome once again as we are joined by our guest in studio. He's an international law expert, Dr. Leopold Chakanyuka. And the main focus of the conversation is with regards the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government, where the President of Zimbabwe, who is also the SADC chair, His Excellency President Dr. Emmerson Mnangagwa, will be presiding over that very crucial meeting, looking to the disturbances that are happening in eastern parts of DRC. Of course, we have seen the reports that have been coming through where this year alone, over 500,000 have been displaced. And the last extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government, which was in November, we had another report speaking to internally displaced Congolese people, to about 6.5 million plus who were internally displaced, which brings about a humanitarian crisis of sorts, which affects the political, social, economic situation, not only for DRC, but also for the 16-member bloc, which is SADC itself. So what is it that SADC can actually do in terms of the situation in DRC? Already with the SADC mission being extended, what is going to be coming out of the closed door session with the heads of state? We've seen some of the arrivals there. President of Namibia, we've seen the President of South Africa, we've seen the President of Madagascar, Tanzania, Mozambique, who are already at Mount Hampden, the new Parliament building, where that extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government will be taking place. Regional integration, regional cooperation. How can SADC actually industrialize, especially when we have a peace and security issue emanating from one of its member states? And especially at a time such as this, where we see the warring parties also coming back and forth, issues coming into play, where others have also come in and also said, this is a complex issue. It's not just the issue of the resource curse, but it also has international players also being accused of fueling the situation. Who are these international players? Is it these multinational companies also playing a part in fueling the situation in the eastern parts of DRC? Is it an issue of ethnic groups, geo-ethnic issues coming into play? Does this then mean we will be seeing not only SADC saying, come to the table, also including the EAC and more, but the M23 rebels, they are the big factor in this whole situation, where the rebels have been causing havoc in DRC for the longest. Going back into history, in the 90s, we also saw troops from the Zimbabwe National Army going in, and we saw in 1998 through to 2002, there was some prevailing peace of sort in that part. What then happened to bring about these disturbances that came thereafter? But even with Zimbabwe going in and bringing about that peace and security, and why we're seeing some of the analysts saying, no, there is some sort of international interference, because we later then saw Zimbabwe also having sanctions being imposed on the country. But let's also find out from our guest, international law expert, Dr. Leopold Chakanyuka. Before we introduce you, let's try and just see what is happening, maybe discussing and unpacking, obviously, peace and security issues, also understanding even Tanzania as chairperson of the organ on politics, peace and security, their role as the chairperson of that organ. What have they done? Where are they? And what more in terms of the meetings that have been had by the organ in terms of the situation in those parts? We know, of course, the Luanda process also is of utmost importance in this discussion. But with the troops already in DRC, National Defense Forces, losing 13 of their soldiers, which also brought about another tiff. But again, So also just take a short break, and when we come back, hopefully we will be on the ground to understand with our SADC heads of state and government, happening live at Mount Hampden New Parliament building right here in Harare, Zimbabwe. And it is where we have the SADC chairperson, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. Emmerson Damzo Mnangagwa, chairing that high-level meeting. Let's just take a break.
Zimbabwe is not just a country, not just a place. It's much, much more than that. It's the sound of the birds early in the morning as the sun rises. Zimbabwe is a feeling. Zimbabwe is a world of wonders.
Welcome once again. It's the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government, and we just gave you pictures of the heads of state and government of the 16-member economic bloc SADC arriving at New Parliament building, and we do understand they will be having a family group photo with the heads of state before they get into that very crucial meeting to discuss the disturbances on the situation in eastern parts of DRC. We've seen disturbances in northern and southern Kivu, and just before the break we also had a conversation in terms of what are the factors that are fueling the situation in DRC, eastern parts of DRC to be specific. We heard from our international law expert speaking to that international issue, also speaking to the historical factors, also bringing into context the ethnic factor in all of that. And I do believe we need to also delve on that matter. Dr. Chakanyuka, bringing you back to the ethnic issue, because in as much as we spoke about the historical factors involving the war in DRC, we cannot ignore the fact that there is the ethnic factor, because with the ethnic factor, it also speaks to the different demographics. It speaks to the distribution even of resources among these ethnic groups as well. But also playing into this situation is the international players, or should we, in quotes, some of those multinational companies who seem to be also fueling the situation in DRC.
You know, as I've said before, we cannot deny the fact that there is this ethnic factor. But what I'm saying is the ethnic factor is not the only major factor. I'm saying this because the M23 is not the only rebel group in DRC. There are also other whose roles at this particular moment might not be as prominent as that of, you know, the M23, but there are other that are also there, which then, you know, dismisses this factor to be the sole factor. Other factors that I've mentioned, especially the issue of the external factor, does have a role. The reason I'm saying this, I want to take you to a statement that was issued by the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Rwanda. They made, I think, for someone who, you know, who did international law like me, when I look at that, you know, it was quite of, you know, a bit interesting when I read that particular statement. There were two issues that they raised. One of it was that they were referring to the M23 rebel group, that the M23 rebel group are a group that is fighting to protect their territory, right? The next aspect which they mentioned was they cannot be said to be violating territorial integrity of DRC.
Okay.
So I'm saying when you look at these, especially coming from a foreign country, that clearly shows that this country has a different perspective, right, in terms of what is happening in DRC. Everyone is condemning what is happening in DRC. So we are saying the M23 violates that principle of territorial integrity of a country. So if then there is another country that supports that particular group, it means that country does have interest. Ask yourself, where are the M23 getting their weapons?
Which is a very key question.
Exactly. Where are the M23 getting their resources? Because the M23, they are not a state group, but rather they are a rebel group. It would have been better if they were if it was the Congolese army that is well equipped, because it is the state army. They can be getting resources through the formal way. But the M23, they are not many, but they seem to be well organized than the government forces.
Can I throw in a spanner in that, Dr. Chakonyuka? What do you make of other analysts saying the M23 are a proxy of Rwanda?
Yeah, it's possible. That's why I said, in the statement which I've just, quoted, to say, if a country then makes such a statement in relation to a group that is fighting in another country, then you can't blame those who are accusing that particular country of sponsoring the M23 group. DRC has come out, saying it, that this has been happening. South Africa has also come out saying this has been happening. I think right now, even when you go to internet and you try to research on the M23, the common information you are getting is the M23, they are a Rwandese-backed group. Of course, Rwanda has continuously denied that particular fact. So I think as our leaders today are sitting, that should be a major factor to determine exactly to what extent is Rwanda either taking part or contributing to this destabilization of this particular region. Because if we fail to address that particular question, we will continue to have conflict. And at the same time, in as much as we are going to be addressing this particular question, we should not let this also escalate into becoming a regional issue. So we have to deal with it in a very diplomatic way, also in a manner that we address the actual fact, we answer that particular question. At the same time, we also make sure that it doesn't escalate into becoming. But to deny that Rwanda has a part, I think it will be dishonesty in a way. In as much as Rwanda has been denying that it is, it's not involved, but there has been indications from the past that it has interest and it had been involved in what has been happening in DRC. And of course, the question has to be answered and that matter has to be addressed.
Addressing the situation, addressing the humanitarian crisis, because already this affects the social status, it affects the political status, the economic status of DRC and the region to some extent. And hence why the question is, how then do regional, continental, international communities come in and help bring about that stability and peace to the people of DRC?
The regional organizations are very important, very key when it comes to, promoting international peace and security or regional organizations. Firstly, if you check the United Nations Charter under Article 8 on regional arrangements, right, on regional arrangements, it provides that the United Nations Security Council can work with regional organizations in terms of promoting peace and security. And subsequently, there have been 2 resolutions that were issued by the Security Council. The one was in 2009, Resolution 1809, and the other one was in 2012, Resolution 2033. And South Africa was one of the proponents of that particular resolution. The understanding was regional organizations are close to a conflict, and therefore they have a better understanding of the situation on the ground and are better positioned to offer a solution because they have a deeper understanding that those who are coming from the outside. And the second part is regional organizations are likely to be affected directly by a conflict that is happening in a member country, because it disrupts either the movement of people, it disrupts economic trade, it disrupts a whole lot of other factors. So therefore, they do have interest in solving.
So much we will be delving on as underway right now. We do understand a family photo with the SADC chair, who is also the president of the Republic of Zimbabwe, His Excellency President Dr. Emmerson Mnangagwa. He will be chairing that high-level meeting. So the SADC heads of state and government getting ready for that family photo. They will be having that family photo, and we also understand they will then be getting into that high-powered, high-level meeting. We take another short break, but don't go anywhere. Keep to the screens right here on ZBC TV. We're also streaming on our Facebook page as we take you through this very important extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government. Well, we are welcoming you back to this very important day where we have the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government with the family group photo, which will be happening in a short while. We are saying they are being communicated to the heads of state so that they can have that family photo. And with the SADC chairperson, His Excellency the President, Dr. Emmerson Mnangagwa, he will be presiding over that high-level meeting today, which will be looking to the situation in the eastern parts of DRC. So, of course, Dr. Leo, you can see also on the screen there, we also have the SADC Secretariat there. We are saying the President of Namibia, newly elected President of Namibia, and of course she is a woman. It's a good thing for the region as well. We're saying newly elected President of Mozambique. We see the President of South Africa. We see the President of Madagascar. We also see our own very President. We see Boko. We also see the President of Tanzania. She's also the chairperson on the organ on politics, peace and security, which also brings us to the issue which we'll be also discussing in terms of the roles and responsibilities of that particular organ. Peace, security. Yes, yeah, that particular organ.
Yeah, you know what, in this particular regard, the organ is very, very critical because it specifically deals with peace and security in the region. It was established in the late 1990s and it came into effect in 2003. The organ troika on politics, defense, peace and cooperation. So as today, what we are going to be witnessing is, as the summit is going to be happening, the organ met about 2 days ago in Tanzania, and they deliberated on what is happening in DRC. So today they will be presenting their report to the summit, which I think will form part of the agenda that will be discussed by the summit, and the summit will then offer its recommendations or its resolutions out of what probably was also discussed by the organ. But the organ in this, I think that distinction has to be made. It's very important, I think, that we put that into perspective, that SADC has two key institutions that are at the head of state level. There is the SADC summit, which is the overall, provide the overall leadership. But there is a specialized organ, that is the SADC organ on politics, defense and security. It's a specialized organ to deal with peace and security in the region. So whenever there is a disturbance in our region or anything that has to do with peace and security, it is under the organ's mandate to deal with it first. And then the organ...
Maybe if I interject, the SADC chair, His Excellency the President of Zimbabwe, Dr. Emmerson Mnangagwa, has entered into the auditorium, the main auditorium, where the main event will be taking place, which is the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government. And of course, the SADC chairperson, as you can see, walking up there, where he will take his seat as the chairperson of the 16-member bloc. And we will also get to hear the national anthem. We will get to the SADC national anthem as well.
Yes.
And we will also get to hear the other national anthems, the African Union and national anthem. And why it is also important to have these national anthems. It speaks to the big mandate, which speaks to the continent itself. But let's cross over to New Mount Hampton building. And this is where we join Justin Matlatla, and we will be hearing the national anthems before we get into the main agenda.
Thank you. You may be seated, Your Excellencies. Thank you once more to Tungwiza Harmony Singers and St. Mary's School Choir for the anthems. My name is Barbara Lopi from the SADC Secretariat, Communications and Public Relations. I will be directing this ceremony. Before I go into my directing of the ceremony, I just want to mention a few housekeeping in terms of the language interpretation. We have the gadgets on our tables, and the English is on channel 2, French is on channel 3, Portuguese is on channel 4, and Kiswahili is on channel 5. And also just to mention that the rows behind their heads of states are going to use the microphones for speaking only, the ones which are in front of them, but will use the handsets that are provided on the desk for listening in. And the channels, once more, is 2 for English, 3 for French, 4 for Portuguese, and 5 for Kiswahili. Once more, welcome to the extraordinary SADC Summit of Heads of State and Government. The SADC Summit is responsible for the overall policy direction and control of functions of the community, ultimately making it the policy-making institution. Without further ado, allow me to introduce the distinguished delegates, their excellencies, heads of state or representatives that are present here. Up here, I'll start with the chairperson, our host, His Excellency Dr. Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Chairperson of SADC. Shall we applaud for the heads of state? Thank you. In our midst, we also have Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, who is also the chairperson of the SADC organ on politics, defense, and security cooperation. We have His Excellency Andry Rajoelina, the President of the Republic of Madagascar and the incoming chairperson of SADC. We have joining us virtually His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema, the President of the Republic of Zambia and outgoing chairperson of the SADC organ on politics, defense, and security cooperation. Also participating virtually, His Excellency Felix Antoine Tshisekedi Chilombo, President of the Democratic Republic of Congo. In the room, we have His Excellency Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa. Advocate Duma Gideon Boko, the President of the Republic of Botswana. His Excellency Daniel Francisco Chapo, the President of the Republic of Mozambique. The Right Honorable Samuel Ntsokwane Matekane, the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Lesotho. Honorable Tulisile Gladla, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Eswatini. His Excellency Ambassador Tete Antonio, Minister of External Relations of the Republic of Angola. Honorable Nancy Tembo, MP, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Malawi. Honorable Francis Kapofi, Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs of the Republic of Namibia. I would like to also recognize the chairperson of the SADC Council of Ministers, Honorable Professor Amon Muwira, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade of the Republic of Zimbabwe. All honorable ministers who are represented here, you are recognized. And I would like to recognize also His Excellency Mr. Elias Mahosi, the Executive Secretary of SADC. We do have also senior officials from the SADC member states that are present here, secretariat staff, and members of the media. You are all very welcome to this meeting, official opening of the extraordinary SADC Summit of Heads of State and Government. Our program will be as follows. We will start with introductory remarks from the Executive Secretary of SADC, His Excellency Mr. Elias Mpedi Mahosi, who will then invite the Chairperson of SADC, His Excellency Dr. Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, to deliver welcome remarks and officially open the meeting. Thereafter, we would request the press to be excused so that the meeting can continue in closed session, and we will have a moment with the press again during the closing session where the communique will be delivered. At this point, allow me to invite the Executive Secretary of SADC, His Excellency Mr. Elias Mahosi, to deliver the remarks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barbara Lopi, our Director of Proceedings, Your Excellency Dr. Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellency Mr. André Rajoelina, President of the Republic of Madagascar and incoming Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania and Chairperson of the Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government and their representatives, Honorable Professor Amon Murirwa, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade of the Republic of Zimbabwe and the Chairperson of the SADC Council of Ministers, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers in our midst, senior officials and heads of our security institutions, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all. Good afternoon. It is a great honor and privilege, Your Excellencies, for me to welcome you to this extraordinary summit of heads of state and government of the Southern African Development Community, or SADC, here in Harare, Republic of Zimbabwe, the land of wonders. This summit has been convened urgently to discuss the deteriorating security situation in Eastern DRC. It is a situation that requires urgent intervention and our collective efforts to restore normalcy and ensure security of the SADC mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, SAMI DRC, the FRDC, and the civilians in the area of operation. First and foremost, I would like to express my profound gratitude to His Excellency Dr. Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and our Chair, for convening and hosting this extraordinary SADC summit at short notice. It is the second extraordinary SADC summit in a space of about 2 months to discuss the situation in Eastern DRC, following an earlier extraordinary SADC summit held on 20th November of last year. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Chairperson of SADC, His Excellency Dr. Mnangagwa, the government, and the people of the Republic of Zimbabwe for consistently stepping up to host our head of state and government at such short notices. I also wish to thank all heads of state and government for sparing time from their very tight and demanding schedules to attend this crucial meeting. Your presence here today reflects your undeniable concern to the situation in DRC and the collective desire by yourselves for a swift and worthwhile intervention at the very highest level of our regional organization. Before I proceed with my introductory remarks, I wish to take this opportunity to recognize and extend our warmest welcome, Your Excellencies, and heartfelt congratulations to His Excellency Mr. Daniel Francisco Chapo, President of the Republic of Mozambique, for assuming the highest office in Mozambique on the 15th of January this year as the country's 5th President. Your Excellency, we look forward to benefit from your wisdom, your counsel, and valuable insights to sharpen and enhance our region's integration and development agenda, including matters of peace, security, and stability in our region. We welcome you, sir. Your Excellencies, SADC has been a long-standing partner and a staunch advocate for lasting peace, security, and stability in Eastern DRC. It will be recalled that in December of 2023, our region deployed the SAMI DRC to support the government of the DRC to restore peace and security in the eastern part of the country. It is also worth noting that way before the deployment of SAMI-DRC, SADC troop contributing countries, namely Malawi, South Africa, and United Republic of Tanzania, had been active in Eastern DRC since 2013 as part of the Force Intervention Brigade under the auspices of MONUSCO, still to restore peace and security. Throughout this period, SADC has remained one of the guarantors of peace, security, and cooperation framework for DRC and the Great Lakes region, which aims to build stability by addressing the root causes of conflict in Eastern DRC. Our regional support has always been grounded on the principles enshrined in the SADC Treaty, the SADC Protocol on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation, and the SADC Mutual Defense Pact, which place responsibility on our regional body to maintain peace and stability as the necessary preconditions for the attainment of sustainable development and regional integration. Your Excellencies, in the last few weeks, we have witnessed intensified attacks by the M23 armed group on SAMI-DRC and the armed forces of the DRC bases, leading to the loss of 16 members of our troops and multiple casualties, now more than 70 as we speak. All these attacks came against the backdrop of an agreed ceasefire, which was brokered through the Luanda process led by His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lorenzo, the President of the Republic of Angola and the African Union champion for peace and reconciliation in the continent. With its consistent support for political and diplomatic interventions to resolve the conflict, SADC had hoped that the said ceasefire would yield a meaningful and visible cessation of hostilities in Eastern DRC to prevent more losses and improve the dire humanitarian situation in the area. I wish to report to Excellencies that I have been in constant communication with the leadership of SAMI-DRC, including this morning, and we must appreciate that despite all devastating attacks on SAMI-DRC operational bases, our troops have successfully defended their positions. We commend the leadership of SAMI-DRC and the men and women who serve under the SAMI-DRC for their resilience, commitment, devotion to the noble cause of restoring peace and security in the country and the SADC region at large. I wish to extend our sincere condolences to the countries and families of those who lost their lives in the mission. We also wish a speedy recovery to those troops who are injured. I wish to sincerely thank all member states for their solidarity, sacrifice, and support to the SAMI-DRC and by extension to the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Your Excellencies, the agenda of this summit has been informed by the outcome of the extraordinary summit of the Organ Troika plus troop contributing countries and the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was held on the 28th of this month under the leadership of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, as the chairperson of the organ. Given the urgency and gravity of the current security situation in the DRC, the Extraordinary Organ Troika Summit felt the need for this summit to reevaluate our collective response towards the restoration of peace and security in the DRC. I have no doubt, Your Excellencies, that decisions from this summit will reflect our long-standing commitment and support to the people of the DRC and our broader quest to make a meaningful impact on security and stability in the region and in the continent. Your Excellencies, this region has been known for its peaceful coexistence or peaceful existence and remains a beacon of hope for citizens of our countries and for our continent, which is plagued by conflict and instability in other parts. SADC must do all it can to protect and preserve this peace that is so elusive nowadays and very costly to restore once lost. I believe that a great deal of our focus and efforts should be targeted at sustainable solutions that build on this very foundation that has consistently defined our region. With these few remarks, please allow me, Your Excellencies, to humbly invite the Chairperson of SADC, His Excellency Dr. Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, to officially open the extraordinary summit. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Muito obrigado. Asante sana. Tatenda siyabonga.
Thank you very much, Executive Secretary. In absentia, His Majesty King Mswati III, King of the Kingdom of Eswatini, Your Excellency Rajolina, President of the Republic of Madagascar, and incoming Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellency João Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola and outgoing Chairperson of SADC, Your Excellency Dr. Samir Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania and Chairperson of the Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Cooperation, Your Excellency Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, President of the Republic of Malawi and the incoming Chairperson of the organ, Your Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, President of the Republic of Zambia and outgoing Chairperson of the organ, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, and Honorable Ministers who are here, the SADC Executive Secretary, Your Excellency Mr. Elias Magosi, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, Your Excellencies, may I begin by warmly welcoming you back to Zimbabwe for this extraordinary summit to discuss the dire situation in the Eastern DRC. I thank you all for taking time to attend this meeting, which was convened on short notice. I trust that you have found the facilities available to you suitable. I extend a special revolutionary welcome to His Excellency Comrade Daniel Francisco Chapo, the President of the Republic of Mozambique. As a region, we look forward to working with you in enhancing regional peace, security, and integration, as well as our collective development agenda for our region. Your Excellencies, regrettably, since our last meeting, very little progress has been made in our search for lasting peace in the Eastern DRC, which is now characterized by escalating hostilities and conflict. This culminated in the unfortunate and atrocious attacks carried out on our mission in Goma that claimed the lives of several Sami DRC and MONUSCO peacekeepers, while others sustained serious injuries. On behalf of SADC, the government and people of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and indeed on my own behalf, I wish to convey our heartfelt condolences and deepest sympathies to the member states and families of the brave men and women who lost their lives in the service of the people of DRC, the SADC region, and indeed the cause of continental and world peace. Our condolences also extend to the families of the non-combatant victims who have lost their lives as a result of this conflict. May the souls of the departed rest in eternal peace. May I invite us all to rise as we observe a moment of silence in honor of our fallen grandsons and daughters. May we take our seats. Your Excellencies, last November 2024, we met in an extraordinary session endorsing the extension of Summit DRC. We meet today to seek lasting solutions to the challenges faced in the Eastern DRC. I commend the contributions made by fellow member states and the SADC Secretariat in ensuring our collective security. May we as member states continue to do all we can to support our gallant men and women in the theater of operations and ensure that Summit DRC achieves its important objective. Your Excellencies, I wish to thank the Chairperson of the SADC Troika, Her Excellency President Samir Hassan, and the other members of the Troika, as well as troop contributing countries, for having convened in Dar es Salaam to deliberate on this important matter. As we deliberate on our firm and united response, let us not overlook the humanitarian crisis stemming from the prevailing armed conflict in Eastern DRC. The plight of the millions of internally displaced populations cannot and should not be ignored. SADC appreciates the support rendered by international cooperating partners in response to the critical needs of the displaced populations. However, more must be done to alleviate that situation. The people of the Eastern DRC have suffered for far too long. Further, SADC condemns in the strongest terms the attacks by aggressor forces. While we pause to mourn our loss, our resolve to ensure collective security cannot be shaken. The importance of dialogue and peace building for the benefit of the people of the Eastern DRC must be boldly pursued. To this end, our region stands ready to intensify our efforts to protect the SADC citizens from all forms of instability in line with the SADC Mutual Defense Pact. The peace and security of our region is a shared obligation. I therefore call upon us all to leverage on this important meeting by engaging in frank and fact-based deliberations. Our political will must be strengthened towards a concrete and actionable roadmap that will help accelerate the realization of peace in the Eastern DRC. I wish the summit fruitful deliberations. With these remarks, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to declare this extraordinary summit officially open. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Distinguished Excellencies, invited guests, members of the media, we've come to the end of the opening ceremony. We will now allow their Excellencies to continue in a closed session. And at this point, we are requesting the members of the press for the states to be excused. Thank you. Also, just to announce that this meeting, attendance to this meeting is on that are more than 1 + 5. The excess may also be excused. Thank you.
What is the SADC we want?
Can you hear me? 1, 2, testing. Can you hear me? Well, those are remarks from the SADC Chairperson, President Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, as he presides over proceedings this afternoon, this extraordinary summit that has been convened to discuss the escalating political, security and humanitarian situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Of course, President Emerson Mnangagwa also highlighting the need for interventions to consider, in particular, the plight of the people in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, those who have been affected by the tension and the conflict and the war that is going on there. So President Emerson Mnangagwa has called for all member states and other partners. He also acknowledged, of course, the role that has been played by external partners in trying to bring stability to the troubled spots of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And it's important, of course, that any such interventions should consider issues such as dialogue and the internal strengths of the structures within the SADC regional bloc and other regional bodies, the EAC, COMESA, even the African Union. We know that at some point this year, early this year, the African Union itself also convened a special summit to discuss the goings on in the eastern parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And of course a resolution was also reached in some instances to engage the SADC regional bloc and to make sure that all the blocs within the continent come together to find lasting solutions to this. So earlier also heard from the SADC Executive Secretary, Mr. Elias Mahosi, in his opening remarks, wherein he said that this summit, the extraordinary summit that is being held today, is also a re-look or an assessment of the commitment by the SADC regional bloc towards bringing stability and lasting peace to the troubled spots of the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's important that as leaders engage here today, they sort of assess the progress that they have made so far. We know that there was a resolution in 2023 to deploy the SAMI DRC troops that were deployed to the eastern parts of the DRC to bring peace there, to maintain peace and order. And that mission was extended in November 2024 at another extraordinary summit of the SADC heads of state and government. That mission extended by a year. And now today, as Mr. Mahosi said, this is an extraordinary summit convened to assess progress made so far and whether there have been improvements in terms of supply of resources to the summit DRC and the capacitation of the peacekeepers and even the efforts by the parties involved in the conflicts to bring peace, to come together and negotiate and make sure that the escalating tensions are brought to an end. Now, this is exactly what will be now discussed as we prepare, of course, to get into the closed session of this extraordinary summit, where the leaders who are gathered here today will continue their deliberations, and then later on we expect the Executive Secretary, Mr. Elias Mahosi, to read out the communique in terms of the resolutions that would have been agreed upon going forward. As this is a critical situation, we understand, of course, that when leaders meet for such extraordinary summits, it's under the emphasis of a statement that says any armed attack perpetrated against one of the state parties shall be considered a threat to regional peace and security and shall be met with immediate collective action. And this is exactly what is contained in the collective action outlined in the SADC Mutual Defense Pact of 2003. So the leaders are gathering here today to enforce that mutual understanding, to enforce that approach where they say an injury to one is an injury to all. And all they are doing here today is to seek a lasting solution to bring peace to a region that has seen problems, that has seen conflict, that has seen tension for years and years. And as we speak, according to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, about 400,000 families or people have been displaced due to the tension and the conflict that has been going on in the eastern parts of the DRC. We also know that the M23 group has been engaged in battles with the DRC army, with other peacekeepers from countries such as Malawi, Tanzania, and Angola, the troop contributing countries, TCCs, and even South Africa, which recently lost about 17 members of its peacekeepers there. And President Cyril Ramaphosa has also expressed that concern in terms of attacks against the peacekeepers. So we are expecting that as regional leaders meet here today, they are going to discuss a decisive point of action items that will ensure that this situation is dealt with once and for all. So we'll continue to be giving you updates from here. That's the new parliament building in Mount Hamden, Harare, Zimbabwe, hosting the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government. And this is being presided over by the SADC chairperson, President Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa.
Justin Matlatla also taking us through the proceedings that took place in the main auditorium for the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government. The opening session there, where they will be getting into a closed session and headed by the SADC chairperson, His Excellency President Dr. Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. And of course, we did see moment of silence for the servicemen and women whose lives were lost during the disturbances currently happening in the eastern parts of DRC. We will be just saying thank you to our guests. Of course, we will then come back. We will come back for the closing ceremony. But we would want once again say thank you to Dr. Leopold Chakanyuka. I know there's so much we could have been speaking to in terms of the situation in DRC, also looking to the humanitarian situation, what it will take or what recommendations or what kind of humanitarian assistance will be needed for the eastern parts of DRC topmost, as well as going forward, what is in anticipation in terms of the conversation that will be held. But Dr. Chakanyuka, thank you so much for joining us here as we were analyzing.
No, thank you for having me.
We also want to say thank you to Dr. Abigail Mupambi, who joined us earlier on for analysis. But of course, we will be leaving you for this moment, but we will return for the closing session for the extraordinary summit of SADC heads of state and government. It is, of course, the situation in eastern parts of DRC.
we want. A SADC that is food secure. Investment in agriculture should be a primary objective of every SADC country. Mechanization of agriculture, smart agriculture. A SADC that promotes infrastructural development and connectivity that allows people-to-people contact. A SADC that allows industrialization and trade among our people. A SADC that extracts its vast mineral resources to benefit its people through beneficiation. A SADC that embraces its diversity and shared beauty in nature, music, and art. A SADC that invests in its young people. After all, the future is in their hands. A SADC that innovates and conquers technology. A SADC inovakwa nevene vayo. SADC yakiwa ngabanikazi vayo. SADC is built by none but ourselves. Let's build the SADC we want. You, me, all of us. SADC united and stronger together. I am ED, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe.
ZBC Current Affairs, thriving for excellence and perfection in setting the agenda, shaping the Zimbabwean story and sustaining the narrative through detailed analysis and discussions, bringing to you polished live coverage of national events. We are ZBC Current Affairs, delivering to you the national budget, live parliamentary debates, independence, Heroes Day and Defense Forces events. We bring you insightful documentaries, special programs, and thought-provoking debates. ZBC Current Affairs. We are definitely Zimbabwean, telling an accurate, balanced, and unfettered Zimbabwean story.
Abusi Matebelele South, Barrier West 1 represents the transformation possible within Zimbabwe's mining sector. Once a small-scale artisanal operation, the miners embraced formalization, transitioning into a structured and sustainable enterprise through professional management and adherence to industry best practices. The visit by the Junior Chamber of Mines underscores the importance of formalizing small-scale mining.
The main scope of this visit is for the interaction of miners, suppliers, manufacturers, and financiers. So it's a miner, supplier, manufacturer based relationship where we are running with our theme of promoting professional mining and sustainable development in our community, and also removing barriers in funding and building bridges of growth into the economic development of Zimbabwe. As Junior Chamber, our key is to grow this mining community, which involves of small and medium scale miners, which is we are trying to expose the growth and the strength of the sector, where we have especially the other side of, if you look on the other side as of financiers in a situation like this, here they have a challenge of understanding this industry, whereby when it comes to funding, they don't even know that there are things like called mining title. They just see that this is just an ordinary thing. But as we look into this, you can see this is a full-fledged mining at medium scale operating. They are doing quite well. They've got everything starts here and ends here, from mining, extraction, processing to elution. What lives here is just going to the Reserve Bank. So this is some of the activities that we want even in the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Fidelity even to come and see, not to have talk shows in offices or hotels where people discuss this core business, but we've taken it upon ourselves that we must go to the mines and educate stakeholders right at the mine what we go through on a day-to-day basis. That's why we have got Zimbabwe School of Mines, we have Midland State University, we have Gwanda State University, we have NAST universities are here, we have companies, big companies are here, and a number of miners and service providers. So this is how we are coining and knitting this as Junior Chamber. That's why we are here, and we will make sure in every year we move to every province with this activity. Our activities will be mine-based activities so that people learn and people grow, and those who want to work with us will come and support and see what we go through. That's why as Junior Chamber we have said we want to come up with a miners bank, and this is part of our vision. If we take 10 miners worth 3 million and we seed them to any institution of finance, we're talking of 30 million, we are able to retool and rebuild and optimize production. Because at the end of the day, we wanted to arrive to proper operations which are very professional, which are very sustainable. So we say service providers, manufacturers, even financiers, even stakeholders in government come to the mine, not into the offices, but business happens here. So even if you are to make policies, we have to make them here. I know government is promoting professional mining. People have learned a lot from mining, extraction, to mineral processing, issues of safety, issues of record keeping, so on and so on. And even our next segment is on mine finance and administration. All those things are very important for a miner.
By adopting proper systems, clear mine plans and sustainable ore and waste handling methods, Barrier West 1 has set a benchmark for growth in the sector.
This technical visit by the Junior Chamber of Mines of Zimbabwe is very important, and we are happy to be participating in it as we build top tier mines as the Zimbabweans. We are at Barrier West 1 in Filabusi, Matabeleland South, and we are happy with the work that is happening here. And we hope after the technical visit we'll give each other ideas on how to further increase the production.
Want to elevate your entertainment? Then add Showmax to your DSTV subscription at a discount. Showmax is not a TV channel. It's an on-demand video streaming service on showmax.com. To add Showmax to your DSTV subscription, simply use the My DSTV app. Select Add Showmax. The app screen will display the discount you qualify for. Now you can enjoy exclusive shows and movies you won't find anywhere else. Add Showmax to elevate your entertainment.
Operating at 70 tons per day, the mine has ambitious plans to increase production to 150 tons daily. This requires upgrading shafts, transitioning from batch to continuous production, and enhancing underground planning for efficiency.
Currently, Barrier is on average at 70 tons per day operation, with the plans to upgrade it to 150 tons per day. So things that are crucial in the upgrade are to do with the ore and waste handling, the type of hoists and shafts that are there that also need to be upgraded. Proper planning of underground workings so that the material can easily be moved through. Then you obviously, as we are looking at the transitioning, is the safety practices that needs to be continuously upgraded and reminded. Issues to do with the ventilation of the mine, issues to do with the general support of the mine. Above all, I think the key issue is you need the right people for the right positions, which means
you need to make sure that there's a clear investment in human capital. With partnering with institutions such as the Zimbabwe School of Mines and the effort that is being put through by the Junior Chamber of Mines of Zimbabwe, and responsible reporting of Zimbabwean stories by the Association of Journalists, of Mining Journalists of Zimbabwe, that will assist in us being able to track the operations. I would also like to say, during this visit, we're excited to see a lot of Zimbabwean companies coming with solutions to come and say, what is it that we can do for our small to medium scale miners so that they grow.
At Barrier West 1 mine, the Junior Chamber of Mines, in partnership with the Zimbabwe School of Mines and Vision AI, is driving innovation in small-scale mining. Engineer Antini highlighted how 3D scanners can replace traditional tools, providing accurate mine models for better planning and compliance. He stressed the need for resource mapping, training and technology to address challenges like limited skills and capital, ensuring productivity and growth in Zimbabwe's mining sector.
We are here with the Junior Chamber of Mines at Barrier West 1 mine. This is a technical visit to come and share knowledge, to see how the operation is doing, try to add value. This is a very good platform that has been created by the Junior Chamber of Mines in conjunction with the Zimbabwe School of Mines. We have also partnered with the Vision AI, a technology company that is in the game of technology, trying to see how they can help the miners, especially on a small scale, around the country, to benefit from the technology. What is available with the current technology is that we can short circuit from the conventional way of doing things. For example, from a survey point of view, the likes of the total stations and so on, these can now be easily be replaced by scans, which are just handheld devices that you just walk through the tunnels, and then you get your valuable information in three-dimensional views, which can help you with designing. For example, here at Barrier West 1 mine, talking to the mine manager here, they inherited this mine in 2023, which is about a year ago. They found existing development, which they don't know how it was done, how much of the ore was taken, in which directions and so on. There are no survey plans that are available. And one way of quickly getting these plans is to get the scans into the mine and quickly generate